Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gumansing. Topping our newscast, Governor Kenneth Mapp called for a press conference Tuesday morning on St. Thomas and touched on quite a few topics. One of them is an executive response to the Supreme Court's ruling on same-sex marriage. With the governor's action, the uncertainty is virtually over for same-sex couples in the Virgin Islands. News 2's April Knight has that story.
Governor Mapp is resolving the issue of the legality of same-sex marriage in the territory once and for all. In a press conference on Tuesday, the governor said he is issuing an executive order that would allow same-sex marriages to be performed in the territory.
When two consenting adults appear for a marriage license and apply for that license, civil society is required to respond. And so persons of the same sex can be married in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
The executive order would also recognize same-sex marriage licenses obtained anywhere in the nation and make sure that the spouses living in the Virgin Islands reap the legal benefits.
Persons who are lawfully married have the right to put their spouses on their health insurance, designate beneficiaries, designate individuals to make decisions on their behalf in the time of illness, and are able to file joint tax returns at the Bureau of Internal Revenue.
The Supreme Court ruling issued Friday indicated that same-sex couples do not have to wait for the local Senate to change the wording of the law. The Supreme Court effectively nullified the relevant clause in VI law, according to the governor.
Governor Mapp did clarify that even though same-sex marriages are now legal in the territory, that institutions like churches are not mandated to perform marriages that are contradictory to their beliefs.
The Supreme Court ruling in no way abridges any religious group or church from following the tenets of their religion. This opinion does not require any minister or any person of faith to marry anyone who it may not wish to marry.
Reporting for News 2, I'm April Knight.
In other news, Senate President Neville James has affirmed that the Senate hearing to discuss Governor Mapp's housing situation will be on July 9th. That hearing is expected to revolve around Villa Fratelli Cresta, the $14,500 a month villa that the governor rented at Estate Nazareth on St. Thomas. The issue has been a sticking point for the community, and the governor decided to move out of that villa on May 31st. The Senate will be looking into the specifics of the lease as well as the involvement of the West Indian Company in housing the governor. Last week was a full week of traveling for Governor Mapp. The trips, according to the governor, were meant to deal with the pattern of low or reduced federal highway transportation funding in the territory. Another part of that trip involved meeting with another police department, and it could benefit the VI's local law enforcement. News 2's April Knight has details.
Governor Mapp kicked off last week's travel with a trip to Washington, D.C. His goal, he said, was to ask for a larger share of federal highway transportation dollars.
$16 million a year made available to the Virgin Islands is not going to get us much transportation improvement.
The governor said he wants half of the smallest amount of transportation funds given to a U.S. state in a year. That amounts to at least $75 million. The U.S. Department of Transportation supported the VI's request for additional funding, according to the governor, as well as access to the August redistribution of funds. This is available to the states and Puerto Rico, but not to the other 4 territories.
Because the law is constructed to states, the territories do not have access to the August redistribution or the competition to get additional shovel-ready projects funded.
Congress, meanwhile, is exploring where to get the money. Next stop was New York City, where he spoke with NYPD Commissioner William Bratton. A relationship with NYPD could mean that local police officers and investigators would get training in New York schools and police stations. It could also result in a technologically modernized local law enforcement.
We are going to be marching forward on establishing a complete infusion of technology in law enforcement in the territory.
Reporting for News 2, I'm April Knight.
Now, during that press conference, the governor also clarified that only $1 million was taken for the insurance guarantee funds to go toward funding litigation against Hovenza. Well, you won't be able to tell what you know any longer. Officials from Crime Stoppers USVI held a press conference Tuesday to make a big announcement. Effective July 1st, the agency is closing its doors. News2's Erica Parsons has that story.
Board members and one volunteer sat somber as they announced that Crime Stoppers USVI will be no more.
Effective tomorrow, July 1st, Crime Stoppers USVI will no longer be active.
Officials say the decision was a hard one, but tips have been dwindling since 2012, and police haven't acted on many of those tips.
This decision has been made because of our declining interaction with law enforcement throughout the territory.
Crime Stoppers' first year in 2009 was its best year with over 500 tips called in, 75 arrests made, and 44 weapons recovered. Since then, the numbers have steadily declined, with only 69 tips received this year to date, 5 arrests made, and no recovered weapons. Crime Stoppers representatives here say officials from Crime Stoppers USA are aware of their decision and they support it. For now, the agency will go into a 6-month suspended status. Officials plan to reevaluate the decision to close at that time and will decide if the move is permanent. To reopen will require stronger support from law enforcement.
What will really make Crime Stoppers successful and be utilized to its potential is for VIPD to hire someone that will be dedicated solely to Crime Stoppers. Their sole job would be to make sure that our tips go where they need to be and they get properly investigated, and that we get the feedback we need so that we know when we can pay a reward.
Officials say they have more than enough money to keep the program going. Donors from the community have been very generous and the board is grateful. Crime Stoppers VI will continue to pay rewards on old tips, but they won't issue any new reports or accept new tips. Erica Parsons, News 2.
And News 2 was unable to reach Police Commissioner Delroy Richards for comment by news time. Crime Stoppers USVI paid almost $70,000 in rewards during the 6 years they were active. Ken Berry, 36 of West Carrot Bay, was arrested and charged with third-degree assault after he disobeyed a lawful order and assaulted a police officer. Bail was set at $26,000 by order of the court. Also on Saturday, June 27, Ralph Albion Gums Jr., 58 of Estate Nada, was arrested and charged with disturbance of the peace and assault in connection with an incident where he was positively identified as the man who ransacked his mother's residence and assaulted several officers. Also, Philip K. Bernier, 34 of Spring Hill Condos, Florida, was arrested and charged with aggravated assault and battery in connection with an incident that occurred at the Cruz Bay Ferry dock, where he assaulted an officer attempting to defuse a physical altercation. Bail for Philip K. Bernier was set at $26,000. Turning our attention overseas, Greece is drowning in more than $250 billion of official debt. Worried about a run on the banks, Greece's government has shut them down for a week and limited withdrawals at cash machines to just under $70 a day. Many residents resent the conditions imposed by their foreign creditors, including tax hikes and big cuts to pensions and government salaries. In January, Greece elected a left-wing government that vowed to negotiate better terms with the creditors, but instead of getting a new deal on Friday, Greek officials walked out of talks to extend the debt. Closer to home, Puerto Rico also says it won't be able to pay a $72 billion public debt. The New York Times reports that Puerto Rico's governor will look to defer payments while negotiating with creditors. According to White House spokesperson Josh Earnest, there's no one in the administration or in D.C. that's contemplating a federal bailout of Puerto Rico. He did add that they remain committed to working with Puerto Rico in addressing the serious financial challenges that are currently plaguing the Commonwealth. The Treasury Department and other administration officials have been engaged with Puerto Rico, according to the White House, to try to help them get access to all available and existing federal resources to address the challenges. Keeping our eye on the economy, here's the New York Stock Exchange with our stock market watch. As we can see, everything up there, the Dow 23, NASDAQ 28, S&P 500 5. Coming up on News 2, Miss St. Croix is trying to get to Egypt. Details on the planned trip and how you can help. Plus, who is playing in the Festival Village tonight on Love City? The schedule, that's coming up. Governor Kenneth Mapp says he is deeply saddened by the passing of Oswin A. Sewer Sr. of St. John. The governor, a relative of Mr. Sewer, notes that not only has the family lost a dear and respected member, but the entire Virgin Islands community has lost a devoted, civic-minded public servant. The governor says that every member should be comforted by the proud legacy of Oswin Sewer. Virgin Islands Department of Education Commissioner Dr. Sharon McCollum also said Mr. Sewer was a true giant in our community. His years spent in the classroom, shaping and molding the minds of some of the territory's best and brightest, were served with wisdom, humility, and fidelity. Well, another topic brought up during the governor's press conference included the chemical gas storage at Gallows Bay Marine Facility. VIPA's executive director Carlton Dow said Port Authority officials concluded that the storage of the gasoline cylinders or tanks containing petrochemical, liquid propane, or natural gas at the Gallows Bay Marine Facility poses a serious risk to the surrounding community. Operators berthen vessels at the facility with general cargo, and a maximum of 3 gas tanks will be allowed to unload and transfer the tanks from the vessels by trucks. The Port Authority has designated the Gordon A. Finch Molasses Pier as the facility for the staging of all gas tanks and the unloading of more than 3 tanks. WAPA service was fully restored on the St. Thomas-St. John district. That's on Monday, just before 3 p.m. Utility customers in those areas experienced rolling power outages after WAPA officials were forced to implement the interruptions. They say there was a problem with their generating unit 23. WAPA crews found a fuel leak on Sunday afternoon during a routine inspection of the 39-megawatt unit. That unit was taken offline for repairs because Unit 23 was down and another unit offline. There wasn't enough generation capacity to serve St. Thomas. Well, as part of their home fire preparedness campaign, as we have reported, the American Red Cross of the Virgin Islands installed over 45 smoke alarms and handed out fire preparedness education to residents of Sheldon-Amali neighborhoods of Savan and Solberg. Among the Red Cross volunteers, firefighters from the VI Fire Services and Echo Company also participated with the campaign, which seeks to reduce deaths and injuries from home fires by as much as 25% over the next 5 years throughout the nation. Over 170 smoke alarms have been already installed in St. Croix and St. Thomas. Now, the next installation visit schedule will take place on Saturday, July 11th in Smith Bay, St. Thomas. Waste management officials say that the Vesup wastewater treatment plant is back online. Crews completed repairs to the aeration system Monday after the plant experienced a mechanical failure. Residents and business owners in the Nazareth area can expect lingering foul odors for the next few days as the system goes back online. Officials say that's normal. Waste management crews have installed a deodorizer at the plant to help minimize the smell. Well, the solid waste collection carts on Commandant Goddard will be permanently removed this Saturday, July 4th. Waste management officials say servicing those carts have been a real challenge, especially with the narrow roadway and cars regularly parked on the road that impact traffic. After talks with residents in the area, the St. Thomas administrator and the governor's office said the decision was made to move the carts. Residents are asked to use carts on Garden Street. A no dumping sign will be erected, and anyone found dumping waste in the old area will be fined or imprisoned. The reigning Miss St. Croix is heading off to Egypt this summer. Anumat Kahina will spend 1 month within the Nubian resettlement villages, and she needs the VI's help to get there. Here's more.
It's very impoverished communities and such, and I think that is a great thing to have someone from the U.S. Virgin Islands going there to do this great work. My name is Anuma Davis Kahina, and I'm the founder of Live Up. It is a youth-led campaign that has worked with more than 4,500 young women and young men of our U.S. Virgin Islands community. And this is just a message asking for community support. How can you support this trip to go to Egypt? And you can do that at www.gofundme.com/support Live Up.
All the best to her. The Committee on Culture, Historic Preservation, Youth and Recreation, chaired by Senator Myron Jackson, met Monday in the Fritz Loett's conference room, Frederick said, to discuss and consider Bill number 31-0025, which was sponsored by Senator Samuel Sanas. That bill seeks to name the baseball field at the D.C. Cannegator Ballpark and recreational facility the Valmy Thomas Baseball Field. It also authorizes sports parks and recreation to install a sign, host a ceremony, appropriate $5,000 for a new scoreboard, and to carry out the provisions of the act. The Commissioner of Sports Park and Rec, Pedro Cruz, said it was with great pride for him to testify in favor of the bill to name the baseball field in honor of Valmy Thomas. He said that Valmy left behind an international legacy as a specially gifted baseball player. Culture and history workshops provide hands-on and feet-on opportunities for youth to interact with tradition bearers and explore various aspects of our culture and history. And you can find this, a summer plan here for the youngsters at the WIM Museum. Included in these workshops are guided tours of the museums and may include opportunities for costumed historical role play. Workshops are available on Wednesdays and Fridays. Children are divided into groups and rotate around the grounds to each demonstration station. Demonstrations include conch shell blowing, candy making, chorizo, fish pot construction, and much more. Historical role play travel back in time to the 1700s. They can meet historic characters and take part in the life of a sugar plantation. They can wear costumes and learn to tell the story of Estate WIM. In the cookhouse with Grandma, they can see the cooking of the 17th century cookhouse, taste the old-time Johnny cakes, and learn about its rich and tasty history. While the entertainment continues at the St. John Festival Village, on Tuesday, it's Volume and Vayo reunion. On Wednesday, Awi Band and Cool Sessions Brass take over. And on Thursday, it's Imaginations Brass and Red Hot Burning Flames. Friday, July 3rd, Emancipation Day, will be celebrated at the Franklin Powell Senior Park at 10 in the morning. That evening in the village, it's Jam Band, Small Axe, and Triple K. The July 4th parade will be held at 10 a.m. at the VI National Park. Now in the evening, music is by Cool Sessions Brass, Kerwin, Dubois, and Crossfire in the village. Fireworks start at 9 p.m. in the harbor. Finally, on July 5th, the polka run at noon at the Cruise Bay beachfront. And stick around, your News2 AccuWeather forecast comes your way next.